Hi everyone, it's Diane with Sew Batik, and today I'm here to talk about chenille scarves, but not in the traditional way. Let me define a chenille scarf first and foremost, and then I'll talk to you about why we're addressing this conversation again. A chenille scarf is a beautiful, beautiful scarf that's so soft and wonderful. And our chenille scarves are made from 1.5 yards of our batik rayon, and they end up being about 6 inches wide or 5.5 inches wide by 50 some inches long, and they're made from 1.5 yards of rayon, and you need a chenille cutter to make them. And they're really, really a fun project. And we do have a video on YouTube for how to make one of these projects. And we have the kits available on our website, and you can select any color combination of fabric to make your chenille scarf. This one that I'm holding is made from one of our lake motif fabrics. So you'll see a lot of the turquoise and green and blue and a little bit of brown accents. We have another one here, another sample that is made from our Spray Shazam colorway, and it's a beautiful, beautiful scarf. They're just wonderful to wear, and they just feel great on. So anyway, if you've never made one, definitely try to make one. They're just fantastic, and our season is still not over, so you'll definitely get some use out of it. But here's the question. Yesterday, I had an email from a customer who really loves our Rayon Remnant Packs. Our Rayon Remnant Packs are 3 yards of miscellaneous strips of rayon that are full width. So when we end up at the very end of a bolt or a roll of fabric, we have shortcuts of fabric, and what do you do with all this stuff? And so what we do is we group them together in like colorways. For example, we have a brown and black group, we have a lake group, we have a brights, we have a pastel group, and they range from 6 inches to 9 inch wide by full width, and it equals about 3 yards of fabric. So she wants to use those Rayon Remnant Packs to make chenille scarves. Well, I have to say, I've never sewn strips of fabric together and then cut them on the bias to put them all together to make a scarf. And we're going to go through the process of seeing whether or not that works because it does have to be on the bias. And so what I did last night with all of these great and glorious plans that I would finish it last night, that did not happen. But what I did is I found some of our sample fabric, and I selected 3 different colors: a yellow, an orange, and this kind of a pinky red. And I cut them in half, so we have 10-inch strips of fabric. I sewed them all together. It looks like a huge rainbowy project here. And we're gonna go through the steps to fold this on the diagonal and then cut out all of the strips of fabric, stack them up, sew them together, and attempt to chenille this and see what happens. So the first step, and I'm not going to do all this in front of you, I'm just going to take you through each step so you can see what it looks like along the way and any issues that I think we might have by strip piecing this together before cutting out the bias strips. So we'll take you through that. But so far, I have sewn these together, and I just use my traditional sewing machine because you can't use a serger, and I hate the word can't, but there's no need to use a serger because those edges we want to fray and chenille just like it was one fabric. We don't want to know that it came from bias strips put together, okay? So don't use your serger, save your thread. So what I did is I sewed the edges together with a It was like a 3/8 of an inch, 1/4 inch to 3/8 of an inch seam, because I wanted to make sure that I got every little bit of that into my seam allowance. And then I trimmed my seam allowance down to about 1/8 of an inch. And that's how far I am right now. So my next step is to lay this on the bias and cut my strips out. And then I'm going to stack up my strips. And I'm going to come back and show you what that looks like and share with you my thoughts on what way I want to lay the strips, whether or not it's the seam side down or the seam side up, because I think it's going to matter which way they are when we go through and chenille the strips. Okay, so I'll be right back with the stack of fabric. Here is the strip of fabric now. I shouldn't say strip, it's the stack of fabric. It's 7 layers of fabric. And what I did is I positioned the seams or the joins of each one of the strips up, face up, so that when we cut the chenille, it will ravel and fray with everything else. My concern is that there would be a join line upside down and it wouldn't be fraying along with everything else. But we're going to see what happens and see if this actually works or doesn't work. But that's what I did with each one of the layers. So now I'm going to go to the sewing machine, sew all of my lines, which are from edge to edge, and I believe they're about 3/8 of an inch apart. So let's see what happens after we sew them and start chenilling. I'm back from the sewing machine, and all of the rows have been sewn. And here's what it looks like when there's a seam for a join. Now, the one thing to also know is not all the strips are the full length of the scarf when you lay it out. And here, I don't know if you can see this very well, but this is actually where we had to overlay 2 pieces or 2 strips of fabric. And that already looks like, you know, it's just a fray. So when that gets cut with the chenille cutter, it'll actually just look like it's part of the fabric itself. So that's how that turns out. But it really looks like an unkept mess before we start chenilling it. But here are all the seams from sewing each one of the strips together and then cutting it at a diagonal. So our next step now is to trim it up a little bit, and then we're going to chenille it. So I'll show you what it looks like now after we take a moment to chenille the layers. I'm only a portion of the way through chenilling each one of these channels. And the one thing that I wanted to stop and share with you is that this fabric right here, this one that's kind of stuck out on the side, is the middle layer of our chenille scarf. And do you see the seam here? What's happening is that when we take our chenille cutter and we're directing it through the channel, it is hitting the seam that is in the center piece. So we've got 3 layers on top of that center piece. So what's happening is I get to that spot, and since the seam is facing this way, I'm hitting a seam and it's causing me to stop every single time. And so what I've had to do is use a very, very sharp scissor to gradually get through that spot so that I can continue chenilling down the channel. So the one thing that I want to pay attention to is where the seam and what direction that seam is, so that instead of going against the seam, we want to go with the seams. The only thing that's interesting about that is that they're not all going the same direction. So I can be on top here, and it's okay that this seam is facing this direction, the left side, because it's on the top. But the minute I have to go against the seam line that's going the wrong direction, we have to shift. And I need to take my chenille cutter and go left to right, not right to left on this, the way this fabric is positioned on the table. So that is the one thing that I want to share with you. But otherwise, it seems to be working just fine when we chenille the strips itself. So I'm not finding anything except for that direction of that middle seam. Now, when we flip this over and we chenille the other side, the seams are on this side. So this side here, it's going to be smooth sailing. There's going to be absolutely no issue chenilling this side. So I'm going to finish chenilling it. I'm going to straighten up my edges. I'm going to cut the tassels at the end. Cut my little diagonal to make it oh so cutesy. And then tonight when I go home, I'm going to wash it and dry it in the washer and dryer. And we'll see what it looks like. And I'm going to come back and show you what it looks like at the end of our video here. But that's going to be tomorrow. So wish me luck, and we'll see what happens with this chenille scarf. Hi again. Well, as you can see, I am not in the office. I was going to show you the rest of our chenille scarf project in the office to finish it off, and we got hit with a snowstorm. It just started a little bit ago, and we knew that it was coming, but Bruce did go into the office this morning to get a couple of the orders out the door, and they were important kits that just needed to be out. And so he's on his way home again, very, I'm sure slowly, because it is terrible out. See, it's bad. We got hit with snow and about 20-25 miles an hour of wind from the south, and then it's going to come from the northwest, which makes it so bad. And sometime this afternoon we're getting rain. So this is North Dakota weather in February, but it's the worst we've had in years. But anyway, that's why I'm sitting at home, and I apologize. I don't have like noise reducing tiles in here. This is not a studio, it's my home. So I'm sorry if there's an echo in the room or anything, but I'm just trying to do my best to finish off this project for you. But last night, I should say, let's get going. Last night I came home from the office and finished the chenilling of the scarf. So I'm going to show you a picture here. I finished the chenille, I trimmed up the edges, and then I made the tassels, you know, cut in from each side to make the tassels, because I think that looks really fun to make a little diagonal cut in the scarf. Then I washed it up. Well, first shake it all out, because you've got a lot of fabric and thread that comes out after you cut it. And then I actually washed it in the sink. I just soaked it in the sink and agitated it up a little bit and used a towel to get rid of all the excess damp and wet. Put it in the dryer, and we get a scarf. So this scarf is beautiful. I really love how it turned out, and I'm gonna just put this in front of you so you can see how, see that? Isn't that amazing? It just turned out so beautifully. The piecing isn't a problem at all. So using strips of fabric, and the back side is, you know, well, whatever side you want to call front and back, but there really isn't a front and back. But look how the layers of fabric, remember there's 3 layers on each side here, but look how it turned out with the seams. So you can see how the layers beneath the top layer affect how the top looks. This is a seam right here that's on the top layer. This is a seam that's on the second layer. And as you go, okay? So, but what I want to talk to you about is 2 things, first and foremost. But let me summarize. Yes, the answer to the question that our customer so graciously asked was, Yes, you can create a chenille scarf from pieced fabric. So go ahead, use your scraps, use your Rayon Remnant Packs, make 2 scarves out of a Rayon Remnant Pack on our website. Whatever it happens to be, mix and match your colors, just have fun with it. You absolutely can. Now, many of you probably knew the answer to that question anyway, but I was really concerned about the number of seams and the direction of the seams, where you place the right and wrong side of that seam in the scarf. The only thing that I found, again, that was annoying is the center seam, or the center piece, which is the one that you're running your chenille tool against. Always make sure, and you'll find it very, very quickly, that you're going in the direction that will allow you to streamline your way through. Because the minute you hit a seam and the tongue of that chenille cutter is inside your seam, you're not going to go anywhere. So you have to go in the direction, it'll force you to, otherwise you will scream, get annoyed, and throw this in the garbage, which is not what you want to do. Just find the way that you need to go right through and you'll be fine. Because one of the 2 sides is going to have the seam facing up and facing down. So either way, but you'll find that. The other thing is that I put the seams where, consider it wrong side, but the wrong side up, so that I was able to see where my seams were. And it allowed the seam, or forced the seam, to have excess raveling, because that seam is on the straight of grain. So the threads in the fabric are pulling up. 2 ways to deal with that. Put it down so that your 3 layers on top of your middle are always facing down, which is fine. Or leave them up, and then you just have to trim along here, and then it'll be fine as well. So I'm just gonna take my sharp scissor and trim this up a little bit. I have a couple of spots where I didn't cut my channel properly, or it hit the edge too much. So I'm gonna clip that. And otherwise, this is a fantastic scarf. So I hope you guys use up all of your little strips of rayon that are full width, 45 inch wide, to create your new chenille scarf. And how fun is that? So enjoy this. Bruce just came home, which is great. So we'll see what the roads are like. And I'm gonna head upstairs, do a little cleaning in my sewing room, and spend the day sewing on my next 2 projects. I'm going to create, using a Rayon Remnant Pack, I'm going to create a jacket, a very patchworky jacket. And I think I'll use the pastels. And then I am going to finish a red tunic, because it's Valentine's Day on Monday, so I want to make sure I'm wearing something red. And I have a New Jersey knit project that I want to work on that is a turtleneck sort of jacket, kind of like the one I'm wearing, but a little different style and really a jacket. So we'll see how that works. But enjoy your day, and happy Thursday, and time to chenille. Enjoy.